Django, Django, have you always been alone? Django, Django, have you never loved again? Love will live on, life must go on, for you cannot spend your life regretting. I'm Chris Spivey.
Matthew Webb.
And I have one word on the thing, and it's just like, Django! And Eddy probably just thought I was going to say Django and be done with it. But how could I not pull it out and do a really bad rendition with no music? I think if I had music, it'd be even better. Anyway, we're here to talk about Django 1966, not Django Unchained. The look on Eddy's face always makes that bad karaoke worth it to me every single morning, every time I do it.
Oh, Jesus. And like, it's funny because when we did talk about Django Unchained, this song was played there, and I was like, me being an idiot, I watched this movie. I was like, why does this theme song sound familiar? Oh, it's because in Django Unchained, obviously. Jeez. But did have a half second of like, where have I heard this before?
I guess it is weird to, before we even talk about Sergio Corbucci, to be talking about Quentin Tarantino. But it feels like we have to, because that's the world that we live in now. Quentin was a huge fan. I combined the same. As a huge fan of spaghetti westerns, and specifically Django, which you can get homages to this movie in a whole bunch of his work.
Right.
And that is going to be the full extent I'm going to talk about Tarantino for this Django.
But, well, I mean, this is, as we've gone through, I've kind of mentioned, like, I'm coming at this a bit backwards, in that I watch a movie and they go, oh, that's what all of his other things I've seen are referencing, and I get it now. And this is another example, not even, I mean, putting Tarantino aside for the moment, which I'm happy to do. When I first watched the movie, I was like, oh, that's where like all those references in the Trigun anime come from, right? Because a lot of them come from spaghetti westerns.
I've never seen Trigun.
Oh, really?
I think I saw one episode and I was like, this isn't for me.
Fair. I mean, it's acquired taste, and I don't know if I would ever watch it again. But there is a character who carries a giant cross everywhere, and the cross is full of guns. And I was like, that's a weird fucking thing to do. And then I watched this, like, oh, it's a Django reference. Okay, now I get it.
Although now we're talking about anime gunslingers, if someone's looking for like my general style of gunslinger, it could either be Spike Spiegel or Alucard.
Oh, Alucard.
Come on, what's wrong with like a giant vampire in a red coat that like cocks his gun by putting it in his mouth? Come on.
Right. And
demonized.
Disguises himself by spelling his name backwards.
Oh God, we're gonna cover that one day. Just you wait, my friend.
Castlevania's so good / bad.
Okay. Have you? I'm assuming you've never seen Django before.
No. I knew bits and pieces of it because I exist in pop culture. Like obviously, I mean, we kind of danced around a little bit. And we talked about Django Unchained. I knew there was a whole bunch of movies with Django in the title. I know most of them were unauthorized. I knew that Django directly inspired a lot of 70s and 80s westerns, but I've never actually watched the movie.
Okay, so I think we can probably safely say this episode, the next episode, we're going to focus on spaghetti westerns, because when we hit around like this point in the 60s, like roughly after 64, spaghetti westerns took off because of the American dubbed dollar trilogy, like The Man with No Name with Clint Eastwood and Sergio Leone, and like boom, spaghetti westerns became all the vibe. They were there before. And there were also like spaghetti, sword and sandals movies and a whole bunch of other genres.
Well, so actually, let me step in here a little bit. Can you define what a spaghetti western is? Is it just a western made by an Italian filmmaker, or is there another nuance there?
there's more nuance than I can probably really get into, as it wasn't my preferred genre. But the little bit that I know off the top of my head is that the spaghetti westerns really hit, I want to say, from the 60s through the 80s. And during that time period, there was maybe 600, 700 spaghetti westerns made.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it's like obnoxious. And the reason that they're called spaghetti is because some critics, when reviewing them, was kind of, I think, an insult at the time, but
Right.
predominantly most of them were made by Italian directors. But it just not they weren't made in Italy. They were like mergers throughout Europe. It's kind of like European westerns, because they'd
Okay.
have some with Germany, some with Spain, some like all over the place. Like parts of this movie were shot in Spain, and so
Okay,
they had lots of
but
different
specifically, it is
influences
not
like
an
that.
American created Western.
Correct. It's
Okay.
almost more of a fact of, we're going to say Italian because that's primarily who did it, saw the Western, and then they subverted it through their own gaze to tell a story about America to some extent.
Which is not an uncommon trend. I mean, we talked a little bit about how the UK does that with the Judge Dredd stories, right? In the sense that that's a British perspective on American history. And there's a weird Ouroboros about samurai movies because, as I understand it, filmmakers like Akira Kurosawa saw westerns, patterned samurai movies after westerns, and then westerns started patterning them as also samurai movies. So in this weird kind of catch-22 of western and samurai films.
So it was almost that Akira Kurosawa saw Westerns, made some awesome samurai films,
Yes,
and then Italian directors went, "Oh, I want to make a film like that, but make it a Western." And then
right.
Americans saw those cool spaghetti westerns, like, I want to make films like that. So it's how we talked about before, is that media evolves, and if you have different cultures view a media when they make something, it's going to be different than what we would make ourselves.
hmm Uh, but thank you for the clarification because that does put a piece into place. Because I remember when we talked about Johnny Guitar, that was a movie that did not do well in the U.S. but did really well in Europe. And I'm wondering if there's a line between Europe going, "Oh, is that what westerns are now? Well, that's cool," and them building off in that direction, combined with also, "Oh, hey, like you said, these samurai films are cool. Let's also do those." Um, where America was like, "Oh no, we know what westerns supposed to be." They're falling into this very well established rut, and it very much is becoming a rut.
Yeah. And for the and a large part of it was to make it move away from that stereotype of like the cowboy is like the good guy who rides in and like kills a bad guy. Like,
Mm.
they didn't want that. They wanted more, some people say, moral complexity, but I'm not gonna agree completely with that. There's a disparage there, but it was just the evolution of the westerns. Even in the U.S., westerns had changed; they become more revisionist by that point in time. So it's an ongoing conversation.
That's good. I mean, because I wasn't sure if it was as direct a line of like America kind of got bored with westerns. Europe got excited about westerns. Japan got excited about westerns, and then they got America excited again. It sounds like it's I suspected, which is much muddier than all of that. Where everyone was kind of inspired by everyone because to be honest, at this stage, if you're making a western, it's because you love the genre, not because it makes money, as opposed
Yeah,
to 10, 20 years previously where you made westerns because where the money was. Now it's the you make westerns because you love the form, and so if you love the form, you're watching everybody, and it all goes to a soup of inspiration at that point.
because it's also like something that we mentioned is that when it started, westerns were like 30 to 40% of all the movies and TV and everything that were
Right.
being generated were
Right.
westerns. So it hit that sort of superhero fatigue. There was like a western fatigue, and you need to
hmm
re-evolve and like re-engage with in different ways, which we're going to see happen a lot in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the 80s, when it really hit that dry spell of like people are done with westerns and people keep trying to bring it back, but it never really hits again. Some
Uh,
people would say that Taylor Sheridan hits, but that's a different discussion for like modern day and the style of western that you want to go with.
totally fair. I don't want to keep distracted from talking about this actual movie, but at this time period, I find
This is
particularly
what we do.
fascinating. Right. Um, Is there also a component of Westerns are now seen as cheaper films, right? Like they're shown more on television because the rights are cheaper to pick up.
To some extent, yeah, it's filler TV, but most TV in the 60s and 70s were considered filler TV. But spaghetti westerns in
Okay.
particular had like micro budgets. One of the reasons that Django looks so gritty and grimy is because that is all their budget allowed. Like Sergio Corbucci wanted it to be cleaner and like had this idea of what he really wanted to go for, but they couldn't afford it, and the weather was against him. So the fact that
Okay.
like Django is caked in mud, dirty, tattered uniform, everything else is somewhat budgetary and somewhat visionary.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because like I know that like the early to late 70s. We talked a little bit about this when we talked about our anime run way back in the day, right? Where um television starts to explode, but there's not enough content to fill the day. And so a lot of stations are going, can we import something cheaply, quickly dub it, and show that instead? And so that's why we get a lot of foreign language stuff just again flooding in. We have kung fu movies, samurai films, we have spaghetti westerns, we have Japanese cartoons, because they were cheap to get the rights to. And so it's interesting that we're at a point where culturally, from a critical perspective, Western's doing some of the most exciting stuff they've done in a decade or two, but no one's conceiving of a big budget Western at this point.
No, because if you go back and look at it, even from the TV's perspective, think that Gunsmoke like started as a radio show to become a TV show to then keep going to eventually stopping. I think around this time period there would have been Bonanza and maybe Big Valley would have been the big Western TV shows in the US.
Okay.
And I don't think those budgets were exceptional.
No, and honestly, those are probably like we've already got the sets made and the actors paid off, so it's minimal cost to keep those going rather than make a whole new show. So that not because they make a ton, but because they're probably cost effective.
And right now, I think 66, we would have probably have had the Wild Wild West premiered a year ago, maybe, and that was Western spy. So we're transitioning to like spy shows now, like getting in that whole James Bond ramp up.
Yeah, that was probably more a case of we'll make a spy show, but we have some Western stuff around on the lot, so let's make a spy show with having to invest in a lot of money into other stuff.
So the genres were shifting more and more from Westerns, which, funnily enough, one of the movies that we didn't cover, I sent a YouTube link to Eddy, and it's Sean Connery in a Western with Bridget Bardot with like a bunch of Europeans encountering some indigenous Native Americans, and shit goes sideways.
What two more problematic people in 2026 could you put together in a movie?
Oh God, it was so bad. Where was I at? Anyway, all right,
Django. Sorry, yeah,
Sergio Corbucci. Frequently gets overlooked and overshadowed by Sergio Leone, like hands down, and so much so that there was a movie with Burt Reynolds that Sergio Corbucci did, and Burt Reynolds came on to the set and was like, "Fuck, you're the wrong Sergio." And it was Burt Reynolds playing a Native American character.
Oh Jesus!
Because we're in the 60s and 70s, and that is the kind of racism they did. Now,
yeah,
you're taking this point. I don't remember the name of the movie, but I'm talking specifically about that to show like some of Sergio's things that Sergio Corbucci did that versus Sergio Leone. And Sergio Corbucci's movie with Burt Reynolds had him as a Native American character, which is incredibly problematic, but it also had him becoming like the sheriff and being like the main lead of the entire thing and showing all the white characters being cowards and everything else. So there's like a level of progressiveness there that is easily undercut.
Right. It's you were so close,
And so much so that it even reflects here in Django that happened before that did, with the like the red shirt / the Ku Klux Klan essentially that he has here.
Hmm.
and showing them and having a Union soldier. And one of the reasons I decided to do Django is that so many Westerns focus on Confederates being like these mythic heroes and everything else into the traitorous pieces of shit they are. This focused
Right.
on like a Union soldier as its protagonist.
Right. And I admit, I was actually a bit surprised by that because without even consciously realizing it, I was aware of the trope of the Confederate soldier who is trying to make life better or whatever, blah 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 blah. And so when they specifically said, "Oh, you're a Union soldier," I was like, "That's not what I expected." And I was glad to hear it, but I was surprised because I am so used to that trope, even someone who's only a casual viewer of the genre.
And if we have people that are Confederates are going to say, but it was all about states' rights. And those states' rights they wanted were to own
Or
enslaved people.
slavery, right?
So it's
You're not
even in
wrong,
all the
but you're also
documentation
wrong.
they wrote and everything else. So it's factual history that if you go look right now before it's erased, you can still go see it. The sheer level of graphic violence and content in this movie had it banned in several countries. And in fact, your country that you live in now, the UK,
Yeah,
banned this movie until 93.
I was surprised to hear that because it was a little challenging to find here initially. Um, it is now, if I read the website correctly, I think it is now listed on the British Film Institute. So they have changed course in that regard. But also the British Film Institute has changed course on a lot of quote unquote violence films. Partially, to be honest, because since '93, Pinewood Studios has opened up outside London, and a lot of filming happens here because of the UK tax breaks. So they have to have a slightly different opinion of films now because a lot of them get made here. So
You mean that capitalism changes the world? Not
what?
always
Yeah.
negatively, frequently. Um, we've already mentioned the film spun like hundreds of unofficial sequels. A lot of that is because this movie is what really launched Franco Nero's career. Like this was his
Okay.
big breakout role that established him as like the man everybody wanted.
Mhm.
Looks like he had something.
Oh
I'm
no,
pausing for
I
you.
was gonna make a Sherlock Holmes joke, but feel free to continue.
um, so much so that, like in Germany, any film that Franco Nero showed up in, being a Western or not, they would add Django to it. And given that most of the spaghetti westerns and other things were recorded silently and they would dub in things later, they would change the names of characters to be Django, even if it's not relevant to the plot, just so they could get that Django cash.
That's really funny because kind of the opposite happened in Mexico around this time. Well, later than this, not that much later though. The El Santo made like 120 films as a luchador, and a few of them that got American language translations. His name was explicitly changed from El Santo because no one knew who the hell El Santo was in the U.S. So kind of the opposite thing happened, where it's like this name doesn't mean anything to us, so we're going to change it to something else that makes more sense.
I feel like I don't know because I don't remember all the Django titles, but I feel like there's a Django and El Santo team up movie.
Oh my god, I have to
But
find this
I
now.
don't know if it's El Santo you're thinking, or if someone just took the name El Santo and put it on a
Okay,
different
so
character.
that is fair because El Santo was so popular that a couple of people just put on a silver mask and claimed to be El Santo for some films. He did try to take legal action against them, but turns out kind of hard to take legal action if you won't reveal your real name to the public. So
You mean
it's a
like
bit
in some of the comics
interesting.
where people pull Spider-Man into court and he's in a mask and it's ridiculous to see that?
Okay, so you are correct. It's Django Kills Softly, apparently. And the Mexican bandit's name is El Santo. So it is not the El Santo I'm thinking of, sadly.
All right. And so I think
Damn
the
it.
only official sequel to this movie is Django Strikes Again that happened in 1987.
Okay. That actually solves a problem I had because we'll get to the ending when we get there, but the way this movie ends, it's really hard for me to see how a sequel could come from it. And
Yeah.
if the answer is it didn't, people just cashed in on the name, that makes way more sense.
So I said we wouldn't talk about QT anymore during this episode. I lied.
Right.
Now that you mentioned
Okay.
that, because when Franco Nero showed up in Django Unchained, I said, Eddie, did you know who that was? And you're like,
Right.
I don't know who the fuck that is.
I don't know what it is.
His character shows up, and you have Jamie Foxx's Django, because he asks, "What's your name?" He says Django, and he's like, "How do you spell that?" And he spells it with a D and spells the whole name. It says the D is silent, and Franco Nero says, "I know." The
Right.
character that he's playing is obviously a Django, and they specifically have him wearing gloves.
Okay.
So
Now that you say that, I remember that now.
and so in my headcanon, I think Django Unchained is another sequel to this movie, but I don't know. I can't talk about it. I don't know for certain. They haven't acknowledged it, but it feels like it should be. Regardless,
I mean, it's probably a case of like, I can't officially make this a sequel for various reasons, but I mean, lines between this is official sequel and this is just a fun character nod because I love the movie. 6 1/2 dozen another, right?
Yeah. Do you know how old Franco Nero was when he started this movie? Don't look at my note sheet.
I assumed when I was watching him, it was like in his 30s.
He was like 25ish. Like some things say 23, some say 25, and they used a bunch of fake makeup and they had him like flake eyelash whiskers and all this other stuff. And his voice actor was dubbed to be older.
Okay.
To specifically make him appear to be older.
Okay. I was wondering how much of my impression was the person they chose to dub his voice in the American version.
So I have a bunch of trivia on this sheet because I went out of my way to find a bunch of trivia about this movie because I really like this movie. Regardless of anything I'm going to say about it, I really like
it. Despite what I will say for the next 2 hours, I like this movie.
Well, come on. It's... So right. The one request that Franco Nero had was that he wanted to wear black for his character, like to sort of as an homage to his own name, Nero, which means black. So that's why his union uniform is black with like that gold stripe on it.
Okay, that makes sense. And you had mentioned that this was inspired by Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo, which a lot of films were inspired by Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo, but it's because it was a great movie.
Yeah. One that we should definitely cover sometime.
I keep talking I feel like we should do a short Akira Kurosawa run, frankly, but
it's on the list. But our list is what ever increasing every time I get an idea.
Right, exactly. So I don't hold out hope. So the two Sergios were contemporaries, right? They were putting out movies at the same time.
Yes,
because you said they were confused. Do you know at the time, like, did the Oni films just vastly outstrip the Corbucci films, or were they seen as neck and neck?
I can't speak with certainty, but I know the big thing is Leone kicked it off. Like 94, like The Man with No Name was, A Fistful of Dollars was in 64.
Okay.
And this movie hit 66, 67. So there's years difference. And Corbucci has said that he wanted to make his own thing that would rival A Fistful of Dollars.
Okay. That makes sense. Because certainly there's a bit of Man with No Name vibe about Django in this.
Yeah, but if they both drew inspiration from Yojimbo, it's hard not to have that same thing there.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's the... I didn't know how much of it was they were both working from the same well and how much of it was one of them looking at the other and going, oh, I could do that. It sounds like it's a bit of both.
But Django versus The Man with No Name, Django would be loquacious compared to that character. Like,
true,
talking all the time. Because if you remember, I don't even know if you've seen the Dollars trilogy.
It's been a long time, but I have, yes. And but I remember Clint Eastwood doesn't talk much in it.
Yeah, if at all.
If I remember vaguely correctly, if I remember correctly, I vaguely recall, I should say, was part of the reason was because Clint Eastwood didn't speak much Italian, and so that's why he didn't say much.
Yeah, pretty much. And given the fact that they were probably going to be dubbed, it's like that is the standard move for most of these movies. which I think in of itself is fascinating, which then goes into like a larger discussion about how they can have micro budgets and then people can put whatever plots they want to on those top of those movies.
Yeah, that's another thing I certainly noticed is that this comes from let's say, an older school of dubbing. Um, there, I'm used to a certain quality standard of audio dubbing now, but also as a weeb in the 80s and 90s, I remember a certain level of why dubs were so reviled by the anime communities because a lot of dubbing techniques and technologies from the 60s through now was just not good.
Yeah.
So and I saw it was interesting to me that I was able to get some and feel some interesting, compelling performances through this, despite the failings of it. And there's part of me that's like, would have I enjoyed this more if I watch it in the original language, or is at this point, 50 years on, is this just is it more interesting or more relevant to watch this in the way that most people in the Western world would have watched it, which is the English dub. So like, I stuck with English dub because I was the only one I could find, but it raised some interesting points of like, if a dub or otherwise altered version of a movie becomes very popular or at least culturally critical, then at what point does the original film take a back seat to that version? You know?
So I watched an interview with Nero, and hearing him describe how the movie plot came together, I don't think watching it in the original Italian with like subtitles would have mattered, because he
Okay.
was like, I think he essentially said we started shooting in late '65. We shot for 2 or 3 days, and then there was no script. Kabuchi went to his
Okay.
brother and said, "Write us something." And so Kabuchi is like a writer on this with his brother and someone else, and so they kind of wrote the script as filming and stuff happened. So
Fair
the
enough.
plot is not what Django's known for.
Sure, and to be fair, that's not this movie is frankly just a bunch of compelling images strung together.
Yeah, which I think is why it works, and the language isn't as important for it. Which is okay. This is considered the first in the Mud and Blood trilogy that Kabuchi did. Some people say there's 5 movies in it, but I'm going to stick to the 3.
Okay.
And the other 2 were The Great Silence and The Specialist. And so The Great Silence is a movie that we almost covered, which essentially has a completely silent protagonist in it, which is how Kabuchi even moved further away from having to have people talk and deal with
Right.
dubbing,
Right.
which is
Which
fascinating. But supposedly
which
people
would
say
have been
that
wild, but
is incredibly compelling to watch, and it's top notch.
I may watch it on my own at some point because it does sound really, really cool. Because that's what someone with hearing loss dropping audio out of a film and how that changes things is something that I'm always mildly interested in.
Wait a second. Did you just say that we during this has inspired you to possibly watch a Western by yourself that you will not be recording just to watch it?
I will neither confirm or deny that. You have to go back and listen to the episode to find out what I said.
Oh, I love it. I feel like I've accomplished what I needed. There's no more reason to record anything. Hey,
Done.
everybody.
Okay, cool.
Good
The next we'll be doing sci-fi.
We keep talking about the gloves. I talked about the gloves. We alluded to something else, but I want to go ahead and talk about it specifically now. Is that in the movie, Django's hands get damaged,
Right.
and
Okay.
that of itself was sort of a dark tribute. I think is how they referenced it to. I had a note in my note sheet. Where's it at now? The name Django was conceived as a dark reflection on jazz guitarist Django Reinhardt, who overcame paralysis in two of his fingers to become like a virtuoso,
Okay.
which is
So it was
something
a
that would have
reference
been
to
really
him.
well known at the time to people that lived in the 60s.
I love when looking at older media and it's like, oh, hey, this thing is actually a pop culture reference that is lost to time. Like, I wrote an article recently about They Live, which maybe at some point one time we'll talk about. But I went on a big old rant about like the reason why the sunglasses are specifically interesting choices because Ray-Bans as a brand were such an iconic brand, and so the movie about anti-consumerist messages you see by putting on sunglasses, the sunglasses themselves are a consumer icon, right? And then that's an irony that people watching at the time would totally gotten, but is probably lost because that's just sunglasses, you know. So like I always love like those older references, like, oh hey, if you were in the audience, you would know what this meant, but we don't know anymore.
So for one of our listeners that specifically asked if we do a Roddy Piper run, not to do Hell Comes to Frogtown, I can assure you that having seen that movie once over 20, 30 years ago, if we do a Roddy Piper, it's going to have Hell Comes to Frogtown. Just because I want to expose Eddy to it, because I don't think Eddy's ever seen it. And I remember it then being, oh my God, why am I watching this? I want Eddy to have that moment of cursing my name.
I mean, I'm a professional wrestling fan, but that does not mean they're all good actors, because boy howdy, many of them are not.
What do you mean? I recently took my daughter to go see the Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire because it was showing in the cinema, and there was Macho Man.
Chainsaw. Oh yeah, give me the chainsaw's gonna get you.
And she even commented on it because she couldn't understand what he was saying for the first minute. It's like, what's he saying? What's his name? Oh, it's Chainsaw. He was an exceptional actor, Eddy. He brought gravitas. He brought menace.
I think you mean same man who played
Bonesaw, by the way.
Sorry, Bonesaw. Right, this is Bonesaw. Sorry, and I think you're referring to the same actor who also played Space Ghost's father in Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Because literally, the people recording the episode saw him wandering the hallways and borrowed him to go into the sound booth because they had nobody else to play the character. Macho Man.
Oh, as a side note for anyone interested, she loved that Spider-Man movie, although pointed out that it was too graphically violent.
Wow. I mean, she's not wrong.
Because all the special effects and stuff back then focused more on like the blood and everything else hitting and it blowing out compared to current superhero movies, where it's more CGI and everything else, and it looks a lot faker than those movies did.
Yeah, because that was Sam Raimi still transitioning out of his horror phase, and so he had a little bit of that kind of in there a bit still.
Yeah. So, just FYI for anyone that's going to show it to their 12 or 13-year-old.
Not
a lot of
that. Yeah.
We could talk about, I want to say, was that Steve Rogers run where Captain America gets shot back into the West and is the sheriff, or the one I think where Steve Rogers gets shot back and is, finger quotes, a Native American.
Or do you want to do the one where Scarlet Witch gets shot back and kind of falls in love with the original Ghost Rider, but then doesn't?
You mean Mockingbird?
Or was it Mockingbird? Yes, sorry. I thought I know it's West Coast Avengers. I forgot which one it was that you went back.
So we could do a whole bunch of those, or we could go and talk about the original Lobo that I love talking about from the comic book run. Yeah. We could talk about the Marvel or DC. Which one was? All right, never mind. I'm not gonna do it. The whole bunch of Western.
Talk about Jonah Hex because that's easy.
Jonah Hex is a time traveling cowboy, Eddy.
He is definitely a cowboy with a disfiguring scar. It doesn't actually work. That's not how scars work.
Or we're talking about the Jonah Hex movie. I want to talk about the Jonah Hex movie. Come on.
No.
Come on. He's got all right. A lot of the visual imagery and stuff comes with this. Is a lot of the research that Kabuchi did. Like we mentioned, roughly the Klan and the red shirt bits. He did a lot of research into some of the American history and things. It was display those on screens. Here in the movie, they're wearing red scarves. Red shirts actually came out after the Civil War, right around Reconstruction time. So that's a whole other offshoot of the KKK, still white supremacist groups. Because one of the reflections here that I really liked about the movie is that once a traitorous South was beaten, a lot of them fled into Mexico to like kind of hide out and then try to have the South rise again, which fortunately it didn't. But you can look at politics now and ask yourself what happened.
So that's something else that where my side research lined up interesting with this movie is because for unrelated reasons, I ended up learning about the Mexican Civil War a bit more and finding out that it was actually it wasn't like right after, or I think it's maybe even overlapped with the American Civil War. And so there was a chunk where one of the Mexican governments actually had a strong alliance with the U.S. government. And so it was interesting because, like, I thought the movie was going to kind of walk into that, and they didn't. They went a slightly different direction with it. But they did allude to a deeper understanding of history from a time period than most Westerns have thus far done.
Yeah. Disconcerting in some sense, isn't it? That they know our history better than we did.
Yeah, totally. It was a case of like, why is the Italian director getting this shit more right than anybody else we've seen so far?
Makes you think some of it was super intentional on the Americans' part. Anyway, I'm just trying to think, is there anything else we really want to talk about from the back? I'll point out that Kabuki originally wanted to like film in snow and everything else, but they couldn't do it because of the budget, how we talked about. But that could be why The Great Silence is shot in snow and other places where they had, I think, more money.
Hey, this one made money, so now I can do the thing I really wanted to do.
Yeah. And the other cool tidbit I like is that Kabuki invited Leone to the set so that he could meet Franco Nero and said, this guy should make your buddy Clint Eastwood feel afraid. Because that's how popular he thought Frank Nero was going to be.
Nice. And maybe in retrospect, that should have happened.
Well, I think if we had a stronger Italian cinema insight, I think Frank Nero was probably like essentially their Clint Eastwood, if not better.
Sure.
But I think that's, I'm going to say that's my lack of knowledge about Italian cinema from the 60s to now.
Well, I mean, if you build off of your point about Germany, it sounds like, at least in Europe, he was probably that popular to the point where they were more or less pirating the name to try to justify people going to go see it because it happened to be the same actor. Which goes back to the Sherlock Holmes joke I was going to make, because I was just reading how in Croatia, there was in the early 1800s, there was like 120 translations of Sherlock Holmes stories, but there are only 60 Sherlock Holmes stories. So they just took other people's stories, translated them into Croatian, and just slapped Sherlock Holmes' name into the story. So it's like, oh, so this is a thing that apparently Europe just does.
Ridiculous. My last one, then we can get into the movie proper, is that originally Nero didn't want to take the role. All right, so they had 3 different actors they had in mind for the role. I think one of them was American and had a conflict, and someone else didn't know. And Nero originally didn't want to take the role, but his agent and her husband convinced him to at least go because they're like, what do you have to lose? And the fact that he did this built his entire career. Like, moments like that are always interesting for me to think about. And like, who would this have been if it hadn't been him? And then what Frank Nero might have done then, Franco Nero would have done after that.
Right. Yeah, totally. It's how many of these things, especially as we've like, I remember like in the Bond run, but also like plenty of other times we talk about movies where it's like, how many of these iconic films, one simple change, one simple decision, the whole thing would have fallen apart. You know, it's wild how thin of a line many of these things walk in terms of existence and non-existence.
Wow. Okay, we can start the thing, Eddie. Because Eddie's got that face like, come on, Django. I don't care about your facts. You want to sing the theme song? Facts.
I was talking about opinions. I'm talking about my opinions.
That opening riff, Django. I won't sing it again because Eddie's eyes already start rolling his head. We see the back of a gunslinger walking, dragging a coffin through the mud alone. Django, who is on the Mexican-American border. He's wearing a Union uniform and witnessed Mexican bandits trying to assault a sex worker, Maria. They whip her, and he watches for a long ass time, like not doing anything. It's like, this is disturbing how long he's standing there watching her. And then suddenly they're all dispatched by Major Jackson's white supremacist Confederates, who then prepare to kill Maria by crucifying her atop a burning cross. Django banters with the traitorous bastards for a bit before gunning them down and offering Maria his protection.
Right.
Eddie, he drags that coffin for almost 3 full minutes across the screen.
It's a compelling opening, right? Because like, especially these older films, it's like, okay, there's going to be a whole bunch of credits at the front. So I just kind of, they're going to play the song. They're going to show a landscape, whatever. And so I turned this on. I was prepared to kind of zone out for a few minutes. And then it's like, guy dragging a coffin. Okay. You have me interested. And he's not having an easy time, though. He's not like, oh, I've got this. It's a couple times he's stopping, he's dragging. And which got me thinking, like, is this the actor going, oh, fuck, this is heavy? I mean, I don't know. But it was like, that's a hell of a way to start a movie, because like, it's a guy dragging a coffin for a while. Okay, I'm interested.
Still going.
Where is this going?
During the interview that I watched with Nero, he talks about this scene specifically because he's like, Kabuchi even sort of set the tone for the set and everything else with this scene. He said, all right, Franco, I want you to walk all the way across until you're out of sight, and then the crew and I will come and we'll pick you up. And Franco said, I walked all the way over there, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and nobody came. And I went back, and that guy had packed up in the crew, and they'd all left me there. It's like, that's how he set the tone for the shoot. He laughed about it in the interview, but I'm thinking, ooh, I bet he was
probably
pissed.
not laughing then. No. But yeah, no, this is definitely a movie that is not being subtle about its message. Right?
No.
There's a lot of caginess in some of the earlier films we saw around some of this stuff, and this is like, nope, these people are assholes, and they're going to be shot by other assholes. That's just the movie we're making.
So it struck me, though, the humor, and I snickered there specifically because of the humor of the fact that she was about to be whipped to death, but then racism saved her life for about 2 minutes.
Right.
Like, that contrast alone is a beautiful display of white supremacy and that mentality for us, while also showing you the horror of the time period.
Right, because it's for moments, racism trumped sexism, but then it's like, okay, now we're going to burn you because you're a loose woman. And, oh, maybe you're also Mexican too. So,
yeah, like...
But it did remind me of, weirdly, and this is why I mentioned the Johnny Guitar reference earlier, is because like Johnny Guitar, also an opening of his movie, just sat and watched horrible things happen for a surprisingly long time. And so, like, is this a reference, or is it? And I turned out later that there's something else going on here. But like, at the moment, I was like, why is he just not doing anything? Is he? I'd love to save you, but I got this coffin I gotta carry to somewhere else.
As a minor spoiler that I want to try to remember later, if they weren't Jackson's people, would he have saved her?
Right. I don't know.
All right. The pano camera shot of the empty small town says everything. As a pair arrive in town, populated by Nathaniel, a bartender / owner of hotels / businessman, and 5 sex workers. Django tries to get Maria a room, but is refused. He pays another sex worker for her room instead. Nathaniel explains that the town is a neutral zone in a conflict between the racist Jackson red shirts and General Hugo Rodriguez's revolutionaries. And a good town for a coffin maker such as Django to make a whole bunch of money. While one of the sex workers is trying to pluck information out of Django, brother, finger quotes, Jonathan comes in to collect Jackson's tithe. Django stares down the goon who flees with the money.
Yeah, this is I genuinely laughed when like they had like the super bored sex workers in that bar. and the only thing I can think of is like, my friend, you have overestimated demand and have brought too much supply.
You think that right now? because I
Right.
got a comment about that later. Um, I loved the opening shot of the town. Like, there's a
Yep.
beautiful idea of what a ghost town will look like.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, and there was some interesting. So, like let me just take a step back. There's a lot. I've seen a lot of towns now in these movies. And I can't put my finger on why, but like when they do that shot, you can tell this town is abandoned in a way that I can't articulate. I mean, I know that there's no one on the streets, but I've seen other shots of towns where there's no one on the streets, and it didn't feel the same way. This one genuinely feels like a ghost town. So when he says it's a ghost town and we see the bored sex workers, I'm not surprised by that. It's like, oh yeah, of course, because there's nobody here. And so I wish I could figure out why I got that right out just from that pan.
Because I think part of it goes back to the budget that we talked about at the start, but the town feels dirty, lived in, and abandoned because it potentially was. Like, they couldn't clean it.
Mm,
A better reference, I guess, if we go and we think about like the Fistful of Dollars. That movie is set in the West, but it's clean. Like, Clint Eastwood's clean. Like, the buildings
okay.
are clean. This movie, Django's caked in mud. Even the sex workers look dirty. Not like,
Yep.
not dirty in a good way, just like they have dirt on them.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
the buildings themselves look like they're dirty. They haven't cleaned. So much so that even the sex worker like spits to clean the glass before she drinks it that was given to her by the bartender.
Right. Which is a great little visual gag.
I think that's part of it, but I could be off. But that's like my take.
That may be it because it's no one's here to clean this up, so maybe that is the subconscious thing that was go through. Which again, knowing that so much of this was just out of Sergio's control, it's weird how it ended up working out that way because, like, yeah, it doesn't really sell the concept.
What do you think this coffin's made out of? Because everyone keeps asking about the coffin. What's in the coffin? Is someone in the coffin? Is your lover in there? Why are you carrying a coffin? Do you make coffins?
Right. It's clearly a very well made coffin because he is just bumping it over stuff and it doesn't break apart. It doesn't. I mean, we do at one point we do see the underside of the coffin. It's horribly like scarred and muddy. But I mean, I feel like it's got to be like a very. It's got to be a hardwood of some kind because that's a really well made coffin. I mean, in the movie, like the actual prop is probably like flimsy as fuck, but it's. I assume like
But
the intent in the movie is probably like a hardwood of some kind.
could it be flimsy? Because that was an opening shot of just him pulling it the entire way. So it has to be solid, right? Like, this is what my brain gets stuck on when I was watching. It's like, what is that coffin made out of? Like,
Like,
does it break?
like
Do they
I mean,
replace it? Is it?
so especially knowing what I know is in the coffin, which we'll get to, I think it was a way to kind of quietly show how strong Django is. Um, because I think everyone is a couple people are like, oh hey, what's in a coffin? But again, him being a coffin maker, I think it's a natural assumption. Like, of course he's dragging around an empty coffin because what lunatic would drag around the full coffin in the desert slash whatever the hell this is, right? And the answer is Django. Django's the person that would do that.
The other beat before I move on that I liked here is that you have Nathaniel asking him specifically if he knows Jackson, and Django doesn't answer that question.
Yeah. He doesn't say no, he doesn't say yes, he just skips it.
So it's a nice beat.
Yeah. Real quick, they mentioned the revolutionaries here briefly. That's what got me thinking about Mexican history because, like, in so many of these movies, they were just bandits, right?
Yeah.
And here they're revolutionaries. Now, later on in the movie, the nuance between bandit and revolutionary is pretty thin. But here, at this stage, we don't know that yet. And so, like, there can be a potential argument for, well, maybe the revolutionaries are, maybe they're the good guys, or at least maybe they're not as bad as we think they are. You know, the obvious racists are obviously racist, but like maybe the Mexicans aren't as bad because the Confederates are racist, and maybe they're just saying shit because they're racist. So it's interesting. The movie opened that ambiguity about the Mexican cohorts and the general's men in a way that previous westerns had not bothered to engage with.
Yeah. But Eddie, you have to fund a revolution. You know, you gotta have money. Um,
Right, right.
in the sex worker's room, you know what? Sorry, let me redo that. The sex worker returns to her room and lets Maria know that Jackson and his men are coming. If she changes into a red dress and plays her cards right, she can be forgiven. We learn that Jackson's a traitorous Confederate who hates anyone not white. Maria used to work there and with them before leaving to then go work with the Mexicans, and then she tried to leave them too. While downstairs, Django plays cards while bantering with Nathaniel about the coffin. The sounds of gunfire echo through the town as Jackson and his men torment locals before shooting them in the back. The sex workers warns Maria to lock herself in and not to leave the room as they're coming. Eddie, she tells
Yeah.
her to put on a red dress so she can win back favor with Jackson, then warns her not to leave the room. Like these are two conflicting ideas in a very short period of time.
So this is something that I don't know how much of this is clever, how much of this is changed in the dub, and how much of it is accidental. I suspected a little bit of all, but like when I was watching it, I was like, okay, the white supremacists are wearing red, and the sex worker makes comments of like he likes red. If you wear a red dress, he'll forgive you, which I took as code for if you make it seem like you're also a white supremacist, he'll leave you alone. And Maria says, "No, I won't do that." And so sex worker's like, "Okay, well then you better hide because otherwise he will assume you're not a white supremacist and try to kill you."
Okay.
But I may be misreading or reading too much into that because it could just be the reason why everyone's wearing red is because he genuinely just likes the color red and separate his racism is separate to that color. But I feel like that is he has told this town if you wear this color, you have broadcast your inclinations and I'll treat you accordingly.
Oh, I think you're right because like Kabuchi did take this from history, and there were red shirts and there were clan. He kind of combined them into one, so they have red hoods, essentially instead
Mm-hmm.
of red shirts. How they did.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that you're on point with that. If I had to make an assumption.
Okay. Which then does open the door that the sex worker has probably pretended to have his ideology in mind in order to keep herself alive and or keep her custom, which makes the this town is neutral thing interesting and complex because their neutrality does seem to hinge on we have to pretend like, well, yeah, no, we agree with you on the racism part, but maybe don't murder people in our house.
Yeah, but then that's instantly undercut because one of the sex workers is an indigenous woman.
Right, which I think again, like the movie doesn't seem to be wanting to engage with this, but like I felt like there was more complexity than just here are five pretty women, right? They all seem to have their own different approaches to it because that woman becomes relevant later on in the story,
Yeah.
and that brings up a different complicated elements to the story. There's a lot of implied complexity which you can ignore comfortably and still watch this movie in a satisfying way, but it raised questions in a good way in my head that I liked that goes, oh, I could see this, and the movie didn't invalidate my headcanon, if you will, of, oh, it could be this, it could be this. And the movie's going, yeah, maybe, if you want.
They built the races so that you hate the races as well as you should. But the fact that they have all these people in a stall and then send them out one by one to shoot them, that is a level of evil that I don't know if we've seen. Like most of the killings
Yeah,
that we've seen have been like people fighting against each other, not someone literally just trying to escape and being gunned down. And just not one person, but there's 20, 30 people there, they're doing that too.
right. And again, it implied to me, like, okay, so the Mexicans are actually maybe the good guys here because we're seeing just how horribly normal citizens are being treated as a result of these people. So like, yeah, it's inhuman, but it does it does make Maria's situation more interesting because her choice to say no, I'm not going to wear a red dress suddenly feels a lot more consequential because it's hey, this guy will just shoot you in the fucking street for fun, literally. And she's like, "Yeah, but I'm still not going to do that to save myself. I think too much of myself to do that is genuinely courageous in this environment. But it takes that horribly inhuman scene to understand the consequences of her decision here."
Yeah, but at the same time, though, we start with her essentially almost being killed by both groups,
Right.
and one of which I don't know which way would have been more horrific to die, but both of them are bad ways to go.
Sure. Right. Um, it's not and again, like while my brain was like, "Oh, maybe one side's good and one side's bad," you're right. The movie starts with, "No, both sides are gonna do horrible things." So, like, that was never completely on the table. It was always like, "Which shade of gray are we looking at here?" Right? Um, but the movie goes, "Okay, so but this side, no, seriously, they're really bad. You know, that's I want you you need to understand this, my friend. Like, no, seriously, they're bad." And it's like, "Okay, cool, I got it." Movie's like, "No, no, 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 no. I don't think you got it yet. They're really bad." And then Django's like, what's funny is like the movie keeps doing this, and Django keeps not really engaging, which is interesting, right? He
Yeah,
doesn't rise to the bait, if you will.
and he is stone faced through like most of this entire movie.
Yeah,
Oh.
borderline bored.
Lost my spot. If anyone's listening, I would say it's early in the morning, but it's not that early. I just had a wrong finger press. The group of fucking Confederates ride up to the saloon with Nathaniel at the door looking frightened as they approach, and then instantly lies to their faces saying he's excited they're here. The sex
Mhm.
workers turn on their charms immediately, while Jackson and his henchmen arrive to extort Nathaniel for more protection money. Because didn't we just see this scene? Django confronts two henchmen when they harass a sex worker and ridicules Jackson and his beliefs. Django shoots all the men dead and challenges Jackson to return with his accomplices. Jackson flees alone on his horse. A great shot that counterposes the one that originally showed him showing up with his men is him riding off alone.
Right. Okay. I want to jump to the gun down scene, but I know you hate when I do that, so we'll start at
No,
the top.
let's move Eddie from how this movie is structured. Go wherever you want. It's
Okay,
like,
fair enough. Is that supposed to be a Gatling gun?
so the things I've seen, people call it a machine gun, but
Right.
it's got to be a Gatling gun. Like it's not out yet, by the way.
I thought this is when he shoots all the men down. Oh,
No,
okay,
this is
sorry.
him in the
Okay.
bar where he guns him down with a pistol.
Okay,
Like,
sorry. That I'll say that because I do have thoughts about that. We'll get there. Um, but then I guess then the other question I have, which also happens in that scene, is why does he keep leaving Jackson alive?
yes, I had the exact same thing, and so I tried to watch it like it's first time I saw it, and he constantly leaves Jackson every time. Like, bam, 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 bam. Jackson's still there, and he's not admitted to not. Sorry, he didn't admit anything about knowing Jackson either. So it's weird.
Right. I mean, at this time of the movie, I was like, okay, maybe Jackson used to be a Union soldier and defected, and they have some kind of relationship, and we're going to find out that relationship. So that's why he keeps leaving him alive. No, it's nothing that interesting. It's the explanation they give is so vague and nonsensical that I functionally don't have one. So it leaves me with a question after the movie of like, why is he leaving Jackson alive? Is he just toying with him?
So we know why he hates Jackson. Though they told us that.
Right, right. That part I got. But it seems like given not only westerns to this point, but also what little we've seen of Django, I don't understand why Jackson gets a pass because he's clearly has no problem murdering anybody that vaguely annoys him.
But then that would be them flipping the stereotype of like the gunslinger in its head, though, because in an American movie, gunslinger would just gun down Jackson and been done with it. Here, our protagonist doesn't do that. Our protagonist is playing, we're going to say, the long game.
Sure, but it's my frustration. I think comes in context with the scene that I referenced to. So maybe we should, when we get there, I'll bring it back up again.
So
But I do appreciate that Django actually seems like the Mexicans are coming in, the towns, and Django's like, yeah, yeah, whatever, give me a beer, I don't give a shit. And then it's like guys come in and start harassing a sex worker, and Django's like, wait the fuck up. I don't appreciate that. Well, I don't appreciate you. Cool, dead. And it's just like, on the one hand, appreciate the feminism, but maybe that was a bit too strong of a reaction.
Eddie, there are like five guys with rifles pointed at Django. There is no middle ground. Like if you're gonna, you either kill or you get killed because they're gonna shoot him dead.
I know.
I do like the fact that he spends his time with Jackson to extort out of him information how many men he actually has left.
Right. And the other thing that's interesting is that twice now in the movie, a threat to a woman is the thing that incites him to violence. And when he's twice had chances to sleep with women and has passed on both of those chances. So he is not doing it for sex. He is not doing it out of love. There's a different reason why threats to women specifically rile him. And then that leads to some interesting characterization.
So for up to this point, though, it'd have to be threats to women by racist white supremacists.
Sure. Well, and also some Mexicans. Well, no, you're right. Because he didn't interfere when the Mexicans were interfering. That's right.
He just stood there and watched, which...
right. But you're right. That brings the point of like, is he doing that because that is an excuse to shoot racists? Or is he doing it because the threat to women is more important? Which is which? We don't actually know at this point, which I think is interesting.
Afterward, Maria thanks Django, who questions whether he should have saved her. She confesses feeling like a person because of it. The pair share some heat as the camera fades to black. The next morning, Django is dragging that damn coffin outside while awaiting Jackson and his 48 white supremacist racist sons of bitches. Nathaniel advises Django to escape with Maria, but the gunfighter is determined to see this through with his own reasons, and he has all the help he needs. One of the sex workers suggests warning the Mexicans that they would help Django and Maria escape.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go on the next scene? Because I know the next scene is really what you want.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm like teasing you with it.
I don't really have much. I mean, except for to say that you're right. The actors of Maria and Django both genuinely have some strong charisma on screen, which has been surprisingly rare in this run.
And given how little time those two characters would have really had together, would have been hours.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get to the scene Eddie really wants. That's we'll do all our real comments. Jackson returned with his gang. They're riding in hard. Then the theme music starts to play as Django breaks out a fucking Gatling gun. How heavy is that thing? So I did some calculations. I think it would have been like about 160 pounds, maybe 200 pounds, plus 300 pounds for the ammo. That's not counting the weight of the coffin because he has to drag it everywhere he goes. And he decimates most of them, allowing Jackson a handful of men to escape. While helping Nathaniel bury the corpses, Django visits the grave of Mercedes, his former lover, who is killed by Jackson. He was too far away to do anything about it. Hugo and his revolutionaries, you know what? I'm going to hold off on Hugo because we added those two together.
Okay. So you preempted my first comment of like, that seems like way too much weight. I mean, I get that he's supposed to be strong, but that is ridiculous. But the other thing is like, is that actually a Gatling gun? Because if I remember correctly, Gatling guns are hand cranked, and that is very clearly a machine gun.
I think they started to be hand cranked, but at the same time, I think this movie, I didn't look at the years, but I think this movie is far enough along that it could be a machine gun because it's not directly after Civil War. I think if we look at Mercedes's headstone, it was, I think she was born in 1830, died like in 1870 or 1870 something. So we're talking maybe a decade or more after the Civil War, which Civil War had Gatling guns, and they were like big ass fucking like
Gatling guns. Because the Mexican War for Independence was like the 1870s to 1881, something like that. It was a bit later. It also lasted a bit longer. I again just read this, so like it's very big in my head.
And I haven't read on this now in over 4 years.
Right. Okay, and so I guess I thought machine guns came later than that, but they were around the 70s. That I actually didn't know that 1870s.
Well, the Gatling guns were in the Civil War, which is in the 1860s. So,
Well,
and
Gatling guns, yeah, but again, like it specifically it is the hand cranked versus automatic thing that I'm struggling with because he just holds it and moves it. He doesn't. Otherwise, besides pulling a trigger, he doesn't. Yeah, right. It's a solid piece, and I thought that was 1890s, early 20th century technology.
What I love the most about this moment is Eddy, who is known for Googling, hasn't Googled this, and instead we're just debating it live on air.
I don't want to know. I want my own stupidity to stand as testament.
But Eddy, what I hate the most about Django is that this moment is spoiled throughout history. Everyone knows there's a fucking machine gun / Gatling gun in that coffin, hands down, because it is a meme and it's everywhere. I hate that.
I tried very hard to forget that while I was watching the movie, right? Yeah. And I was like, maybe there's something else in the coffin, and then the machine no, maybe it's a different movie. No, okay, this is the scene. I love the scene. Don't get me wrong. I know why people talk about it because it's a great scene, and if you don't know what's coming, it's a fantastic surprise because, like, at no point does anyone in the movie go, "Do you have a gun in there? Do you have a body? Do you have gold?" Turns out that's also true, but not yet.
Minor spoiler for Sinners is I think Sinners homages this scene too in theirs.
Yeah, oh yeah. I thought about that, but you're right.
They bury it, and usually bury coffins, and
right, yeah,
kill a bunch of racists.
He put his two rifles into the yeah. No, that makes sense.
To gun down a whole bunch of racists.
Yep.
And Ryan Coogler is also a cinephile, so I'm just saying.
You're probably right.
And I stand by Sinners is a Western.
Yeah. But also,
I love it. There's nothing about the scene not to love. It's beautifully shot. And it's horribly graphic, and not.
Well, I think part of the reason why is, again, it's wild because it turns out it's kind of an accident, but because there's so much mud in the scene, the bright reds that everyone's wearing as a racist stands out so much against the otherwise uniform browns of the scene.
Yeah.
And so when they're all being shot, because to be honest, very few of you don't see, there's no blood spraying everywhere. Most of the times when they're getting shot, the actors are clutching chest going, oh, and falling over, right? Because I was looking for, because I had heard going into this, like, this is a horribly violent movie. And it's like, it's not. And then I saw the later scenes, like, oh, okay, it is, but very specifically. But most of the times when people are shot, it's just there's no even bullet holes. But because there's so much of the red clothing, it gives you the illusion of a bloody scene without actually having a lot of blood in there. So it's a really cool visual moment.
Yeah, and over 100 people die finger quotes in this movie. Like you get most of them here, and then the other thing happens. But like it's all there and it's beautiful. So well done.
The other thing that's interesting is the scene goes on just a touch too long. Like he guns people down, people fall over. He guns people down, people fall over. He guns people down, people fall over. He's still gunning people down, and it's just like, and it ends up giving Django a certain amount of. He doesn't come across as like a berserker or like he's relishing this, but he's very violently thorough.
Yeah,
he's like. But this brings to my earlier question. All of that feels accurate and authentic, except that he still lets the leader go again.
Yeah.
I don't understand
by his
why.
Precision shooting with like that machine / Gatling gun that
right.
he could avoid hitting Jackson.
Right, exactly. It's the you're a player character. I get this. Whatever. That's not how any of this works. Fine. but like we just saw, like you said, like okay, now we know the reason both why he protects women and why he's mad at not Nathaniel, Jackson. So we get all that. It was like, so why aren't you murdering him again? And specifically, it's
And
like, I want you to go get the rest of your men and bring them back here so I can murder them too. Is basically what's happening right now.
but Nathaniel in the movie asks that same damn question. It's like, why'd you let Jackson go? It's like, yes.
Right. So I mean, it does feel like it's intentional. I just don't. I feel like maybe there's a translated line or something missing, or maybe it just intentionally left vague. I don't know, but it was clear the movie was like, no, we know you have this question, so we're gonna give it to Nathaniel. But figure it out, dude. I don't know.
I'm okay with however strong Django is. What I am disconcerted the most about is that well-placed, strategically relevant, huge tree trunk that's just sitting out in the middle of the road for no reason. Like, there are no trees in town. Did someone drag in the town? Did it fall from the woods and like bounce into town? It is strategically perfect. Like, that is
right. Which really feels like they set up the shot and it's like, oh shit, there's a tree there. Fuck it, I don't want to move it. Go ahead, just shoot around it.
Oh, okay. I had to get out of the way. Hugo and his revolutionaries arrive in town to their own theme music and capture Jackson's spy brother, finger quotes, Jonathan, as he's chastising Maria. As punishment, Hugo cuts off Jonathan's ear and forces him to eat it, and then shoots him. Later, Django proposes to Hugo, who he had once saved in prison, that they steal Jackson's gold, which is why I think we leave Jackson alive, from the Mexican army fort, and so they can buy 9 more machine guns like the one Django has. Eddy, we have pre-glow. We have sex workers wrestling in the mud before glow even existed. Right here, right now.
They're slightly better at wrestling than the glow people were, but it's neither here nor there. No, it was actually really funny because like up to this point, I just seen the iconic Gatling gun scene. And I was like, I don't get why people say this movie's violent. It's not that bad. And then I get to this scene, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. Because like, oh, he cuts his ear off. Well, that's a little. Oh, he's eating it. Oh, and then he shoots him in the head. Okay, all right. You know what? Never mind. Take it all back. Get it. Okay.
So here is where I started wondering if the reason Django didn't kill the Mexicans who were going to kill Maria is because he and Hugo are friends and he didn't want to kill Hugo's people.
I mean, I could see that. I don't know. At this point, I felt like Django had some kind of scheme. And at this point in the movie is when I realized that, as you're saying earlier, this is a European look into the American genre as opposed to an American perspective on it. And so I was thinking a lot of Conan, how people look at Conan the Barbarian in a pop culture perspective as this big dumb barbarian, but the actual Conan from the stories is actually a schemer.
Yeah.
And so I was like, so I started thinking, okay, is the reason why Django didn't interfere with Maria is like, okay, I need to keep Hugo sweet because I have this long-term plan in mind. Oh shit, these racists are in town. That's fucking up my game. Now I need to step in. And so that actually got me to reframe Django. It's like, okay, so he's not doing this for altruistic reasons, you know? And I genuinely, at this point in time, was like, if this had been an American film, I'd be like, okay, no, this is all a scheme, a double bluff, and Django's secretly a good guy because that's how American Westerns work at this point. But because this is an Italian movie, I was like, I genuinely don't know if Django's a good guy or not.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Oh, and so like I stand by, I think the reason that he lets Jackson live this long is because of the gold.
Right. Yeah. Which again, like, that's why I had to kind of reframe things myself because, like, if this was a straight up American revenge story, that wouldn't have held water. It's like, no, you just murder him because that's what you do. You get revenge. And so I was like, okay, so he's not murdering the guy that he really wants to kill because of this gold. And so again, it's like, okay, is Django just an asshole? Right? Is he a bad guy? And nobody in this film is good. And Maria's the only vaguely good person in this whole movie. And even at this point in time, Maria seems like a little iffy on Django. It seems she's like, I'm not sure. Maybe me professing my love for him was a great idea. Um, so I was into it, right? Like I was like, okay, this is we've seen morally complex westerns before, but they're always morally complex with two people with absolute ideologies in conflict. This is one of the few times I could think of in our run where the protagonist was himself morally complicated. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know what the answer to this movie is. So I was like, cool, I'm into it. Let's go. Where are we going with this?
A more you know moment for the kids out there listening to us. Never confess that you love someone after knowing them for like 6 hours. Nathaniel, under the guise of bringing sex workers to the soldiers, hence my joke earlier, Eddie, that these sex workers must have incredible stamina because they're working with the Mexicans, the white supremacists, and the soldiers. And there's just 5 of them. The worst 6 from Maria. Drive a horse cart containing Django, Hugo, and 4 revolutionaries, two of who are named Miguel and Ricardo, in the fort, allowing them to massacre many soldiers. Miguel uses Django's machine gun, while Django, Hugo, and Ricardo fight their way to the gold. As Django and the revolutionaries escape, Jackson gives chase, but is forced to stop when the thieves reach the American territory. Django asks for his share of the gold, but Hugo, wanting to use it to fund his attacks on the Mexican government, promises to pay Django once he's in power, and the gold is safe here.
Right. And that's when I realized, oh no, the quote unquote revolutionaries are basically just bandits that are using the revolution as an excuse.
Eddie, aren't all government people crooks and thieves though? At the end of the day,
I mean, mood. You're not wrong. But again, what I found interesting at this point in the movie for me was like, it is the Mexican bandit stereotype, but it took us a long time to get here. And so it feels way more earned than just, oh, they're bandits because they're Mexican. It's no, they're bandits because they're Mexicans in a very specific political moment in history. And I was like, that's way more interesting than any other Mexican stereotype I'd seen prior to this.
So the layers, I don't even know if to take complexity, but the nuances that this film takes are refreshing, giving some of the things that we've seen. I had a lot of praise for things that we've seen, but I like the nuances here. And to know that like the script itself is a pretty simplistic plot, but it's not about that. Most spaghetti westerns are about like the style, the music, and the nuances that you see.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I really liked about it is because, to your point, the plot is. I won't say the plot's not important because it is, and it's not even about character because the characters are not themselves complicated, but the movie's more interested in showing you interesting things than explaining them. And so it leaves you to fill in the gaps. I think that ages really well for people like us who are excited by media that allows us to think in good ways as opposed to boring us so we start thinking in bad ways and questioning things.
Yeah.
Invites us to question in positive ways and therefore become more engaged with the film. So what is very likely them going, I don't know, the Mexicans rob a bank, I guess, feels more complicated and interesting because it's why is Django doing this? What is this scheme going on to? But the part that I was kind of dreading that never quite happens is please don't give the racist moral complexity. And they don't. They're the only characters who are just evil from start to finish, right?
Yeah.
There's no nuance to them. And so because of their stark lack of nuance, everyone else feels nuanced compared to them, which is where I think a lot of the illusion of complexity comes from, is because you have literally hundreds of just unabashed racists. And so the Mexicans are like, at no point does it go, no, the racists are right for hating Mexicans. It's no, they're bad for hating Mexicans. These specific Mexicans are assholes. But it's not because they're Mexican, it's because they're assholes.
But even at that, though, the Mexicans themselves aren't as bad as the racist at any point in
Right,
time.
right. It's just that it's the, and really it comes down to they're bad because they tried to kill Maria for reasons that I don't think were ever adequately explained. I think it was just because she was a loose woman. And because they promised Django money that they then they tried to renege on. But aside from that, they're not inherently evil. They're just trying to fight for their way of life.
Yeah. And so, oh, I like it. I agree completely with what you said. All right. How do you like this big action scene of them like breaking into the fort and seeing that pistols far outshine rifles in every way imaginable into this movie?
Well, yeah, this is definitely the part of like, this would look cool rather than this makes any fucking sense part of the movie, right?
Yeah.
It's the, he has a huge gun in his coffin because it'd be cool, and you're right, it is cool. But by your logic, then rifles should be better than pistols. Like, no, but pistols are cool, so pistols are now in charge. And like, so by this thing, a pistol could outshoot a Gatling gun by this pyramid that you built. You know?
No, I think it goes Gatling gun, pistols, rifles, fist.
Oh, okay. Is that how it works? Is it so the Gatling gun is the apex?
Yes. And I'm dubious if fists are lower than rifles. Rifles and fists could be on the same level because we get a fist fight in a second here.
That's true. That's true. That's true. But yeah, so like I actually like it because the initial Gatling gun scene was very kind of Django just methodically murdering people, and like I said, it went on a bit too long. This is the Gatling gun is worked into a larger action scene, and it's because Django himself is not carrying it. The Gatling gun is minimalized, so it sends up a kind of message of like, this is, to use video game terminology, a hero weapon, which means it does more in his hands than in somebody else's hands. Which again makes not only like a sense, but makes cinematic sense because Django is our focus. So the big weapon in his hands is more powerful than in anybody else's hands. But there's no reason for that. It's just themes.
Oh, dig it so much. All right. When, and this is why we name these people, when Ricardo attempts to sexually assault Maria during a post-heist party, Django kills him. Hugo allows Django to spend the night with Maria, but he chooses another sex worker who then he uses to distract the men guarding the gold. And Django enters the house via the chimney, stealing the gold in his coffin and activating his machine gun as a diversion. Django loads a coffin onto the wagon. Maria implores Django to take her with him at gunpoint. And then Maria takes her badass moment and kills some people that were going to sneak up on them. Bam.
Yeah. She's really good with the pistol, and like,
that's a rifle, my friend.
Or sorry, rifle. Sorry.
She's the only person that really hit with a rifle right away.
I have already mentally replaced it with a pistol because I've just internalized a lot of the pistols are better than rifles. So
this is her Grace Kelly moment from High Noon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's great. And I have to say, like, I don't think it was meant to be comedic, but it was genuinely funny trying to watch Django quietly shove a coffin up a chimney and then drag it across things. Like, he's doing like he's trying to sneak. It's like, you got to know on set. It's like, and he's like, I'm quiet. And I'm like, motherfucker, how high of a stealth roll would you have to make to get that to happen?
So this is the only time I have this note in bold letters. How strong is fucking Django? Because he brings that coffin down and then moves it around, all this other shit. It's like, how strong is he?
And again, he has to have enough control over it, not only to make sure it descends correctly, but also that he doesn't just drop it and make a loud noise. So like, that's an additional level of strength on top of everything. But I genuinely like, because like when like I said, Ricardo goes after Maria, and Django's like, no, and he shoots him, and then he's like, you can sleep with her, and he's like, no, I'll sleep with another woman instead. I was still like, is Django an asshole, right? It's like, I'm gonna sleep with whoever I want to. You're not worth me. I actually, for a half second, bought it, you know, because I didn't quite know where this movie was going to go. And then when he's like, "Take your clothes off," I'm like, "Oh no, Django, man, no, don't. I kind of like you, but just not." And then I see where he's going with it, and I'm like, "Oh, that's because the movie cleverly hides the fact she's by a window until the scheme starts." And then people are looking in the windows like, "Oh, that's what you were doing." So like the movie does a really good job of like making Django ambiguous until he's like, "Ignore what I'm doing, just keep undressing." And she's like, Okay, whatever you're into, man, I guess." And then he
He's a
starts grabbing the
voyeur.
coffin, and then like, what the fuck is going on? And then he tries to escape. It's like I click, and then at that moment when I figured out what's going on is when the movie cuts to the window. So the movie's kind of like, yes, you were correct. Let me validate your assertion here. Um, so it's weirdly like this kind of mini mystery in the middle of it. Like a bit structured like a mystery movie. Like, what is Django's plan here? Or maybe heist film is a better example of like what's the scheme, what's the plan? And then when the movie lets you in on the scheme right at the moment where you're kind of starting to figure out there actually is a scheme even happening. So I really, really dug that.
Ah, just really well done. I'll let my Django strength theme go. Arriving at the bridge where they first met, Django tells Maria that they should part ways, but Maria begs him to abandon the goal so they can start a new life together. When Maria's rifle misfires, the coffin falls in the quicksand below. Django nearly drowns trying to recover the gold, and Maria is wounded by Hugo's men while trying to save him. Miguel crushes Django's hands as punishment for his theft, and Hugo's gang leave for Mexico. Upon arrival, the revolutionaries are massacred by Jackson and the army. Django and Maria return to the saloon, finding only Nathaniel there. And Django tells them that he must kill Jackson to prevent further bloodshed.
And I genuinely love that it's like a movie. Again, in an American movie, I keep pointing this out, but I think it's relevant in an American movie. When Django got the gold and they got the wagon, that would have been like, and we'll go off and we'll have a life together. And that would have been the end of the movie.
Yep.
In this movie, it's like, but then the gun goes off and it all goes to shit within seconds. Like almost instantly, the movie's like, fuck Django.
Because they're barely ahead of the people they're trying to escape. You don't stop and chit chat.
Right. And so in my head, I was like, okay, maybe they're far enough away they feel like they've escaped them. And then the rifle goes off, and then instantly they're there. And like for a half second, I was like, how did they get there so fast? I was, oh no, because they heard the gunshot and they just followed. None of us. So clearly the gunshot must have been Django. And it's like, go towards the gunshot is, and sure enough, they're there right when he's in the middle of quicksand, which by the way, once again, quicksand, way more of a threat than I ever thought it was actually going to be in my real life.
All right. All right, Eddie. If I'd put real logic on this, that horse is carrying Django, Maria, and a coffin full of gold. So it would have a limited speed it could go.
It is gold dust, but yes.
Because the horse isn't as strong as Django. So these people just on horses could easily catch up with them.
You don't know that. That horse might be That horse might be Django. For all you know, that horse also has its own movie franchise.
That horse is no Comet. So it is not as strong as Django is.
Fair enough. You're right.
If Django hadn't tried to break up with Maria, they could have escaped and lived happily ever after.
Right? Yeah. Like if he listened to Maria, if there's a lot of decisions that could have been made here, and it really feels like I don't feel like Django's an idiot at this moment. I feel like it's just bad luck, right? I think Django's like, I think that if that conversation had gone on a little bit longer, Django would have been talked around.
Yeah.
I feel like it all comes down to it was shitty timing, and so we don't know what would have happened. So in isolation in that scene, it's like, oh well, Django's being kind of an idiot here. It's like, yeah, just go off with Maria. You have the gold, go do it. But it feels like it's a protestation that he wants to kind of be talked around to. And it may have been a case of like, well, maybe we'll go off, get the gold, but I have to come back and take care of Jackson, something, right? But again, we don't know where that conversation would have gone because suddenly this happens, and within minutes, everything has gone to hell. So it was just a sudden shock of like, wow, okay, we're doing something different now. It was really cool.
Even basic gun safety would have helped him out. Or Django hadn't gotten
Seriously.
mad and like hit the cart. Jackson
Yeah.
learns that Django is waiting for him at Tombstone Cemetery and kills Nathaniel. Django, resting himself on the back of Zora's cross, pulls the trigger guard off his revolver with his teeth and rests it against the cross just as Jackson's gang arrive. Believing Django is praying but can't make the sign of the cross with his mutilated hands, Jackson mockingly shoots a corner of the cross. Django then kills Jackson and his men by pushing the trigger against the cross and fanning the gun. Leaving his revolver on the cross, Django staggers out of the cemetery. Forever, Django!
And then that movie just fucking ends.
Whoop.
It's just like, that's it. We're done.
Did you want the movie to go shitty? Was that a bit better? Little Shaft joke for people.
Well, because I mean, this was one of the rare times where I had to stop for unrelated reasons. And so, because I was streaming it, I paused it and it said, "Yeah, you have 2 minutes left." I'm like, "What the fuck?" It's like there's a whole like guy we have to murder here, and the movie's just like, "Yep, he's murdered." I don't know what else you want. That we murdered the racist. That's all we gotta do. So again, like the by the ending of the movie is retroactively telling you Django's revenge against Jackson was in fact the story the entire time.
Yeah.
So like I have been giving this movie a lot of praise about complexity and nuance and whatnot, and it's like, no, actually it was just a revenge movie the whole time. And so I was like, fuck you, Sergio.
Oh, I love it.
I was drawn into this complex web of morality and character interplay, and it's like, nope, just a Western. Fuck you.
It's like Charlie Brown and Lucy in the football. Oh, I love it. Come on.
Yes.
No.
And so, like, first of all, pulling trigger out of his teeth is just fucking badass, and I had nothing bad to say about that. Because I was like, I was watching, I'm like, what the fuck is he doing again? Is he trying to pull the trigger off his teeth? He did pull a trigger guard with his teeth. Okay. Jesus, I knew you were strong, but I didn't realize you had cheek muscles like that. What the hell, man?
Oh, he's like Battery Eater Lad.
Right. Yeah. And it's just like, and he just spits it. I'm just like, okay. That's a thing we could do, apparently.
Oh, I love it. So, all right, what are your closing thoughts on Django?
Well, that's kind of leading my closing thoughts actually, which is that I actually don't know how I feel about this film. I do not. I enjoyed the film, right? And we've talked before about watchability and enjoyment is kind of more important. But from a critical perspective, it's a mess. You know? I thought this movie was going a certain direction like 4 different times. And each time I was willing, because the movie had such striking imagery and was such a compelling watch, even in spite of the wonky dubbing, which we haven't talked about, frankly, except for just mentioning it in passing. The dubbing is awful, but I didn't care at all watching it. And the movie, it just kind of just stops. It's like, yeah, we murdered everyone, so what threads are you referring to? It's like, it's like 12. So like when I said I couldn't see a sequel happening, like I take it back. Like there's obviously material for a sequel here. The big issue is like Django's a gunslinger and his hands have been brutalized. How do you undo that? And apparently the answer is you have him wear gloves.
So like I said, regardless of who gets about this movie, I thoroughly enjoy it. It is a completely watchable film. You can tell the script was written ad hoc as they went through. But once again, spaghetti Western, not really so much about the actual plot of the movie as it is about those striking dynamics visually, musically, and the beats that we get doing those. Like hands down. And without the music, it wouldn't work. Like the music does a lot of storytelling for you, and you can add in the bits that aren't there.
Right.
Which is why the entire thing works.
And I like without going, because we did a whole episode about Django Unchained, so I'm not going to necessarily go into it. But I see now more why Django Unchained was as violent as it was, partially because this movie, for '60s standards, is incredibly violent, but not because of shooting a bunch of people, right? It's because of two very intimate torture scenes functioning, which is cutting someone's ear off, making them eat it, and smashing someone's hands. I could see how that sets an expectation, and then someone can go, okay, what if I do the movie that everyone thinks this movie actually is and make it just as violent and graphic as everyone thinks this movie is? So I
Yeah.
can see now the connection of why that movie is the way it is, but doesn't excuse the overuse of the N word. That's still way gratuitous. But like I could see, I guess in retrospect, why a lot of people were like, "Oh, this movie is out there." Um, but I think this is a weird case of, because this movie is so iconic, I did come into it with higher expectations,
Mm.
and that sometimes bites me in the ass. Of like, oh, this movie's gonna be a classic, and it's like it's not, right? It's good. It's very watchable, and I won't say anything against that. But like, it's, I think during watching of it, I was like, because this movie's so well regarded, obviously it has a plan. Sure as fuck does not. But if I had come in going, "Oh, this would be a fun western," I think I probably would have enjoyed it a touch better, because it's like a messy, cheap western is fine. If I know going in, I'm going to get a messy, cheap western. This is a messy, cheap western that has gained iconic status, and as a result, is putting expectations onto it that it was never intended to carry. It was supposed to be, I'll make a western, and maybe some people will like it better than the other Sergios western, but otherwise, I just want to make a cool western on like $15. You know,
I I can see that. The thing is, though, I'm really curious now, and maybe when you watch, you can let me know, is if the Great Silence is going to be potentially better filling those beats that you're looking for than Django is, because Sergio Corbucci would have had time to sort of develop his own spaghetti western vibe, because that movie
I mean,
happens a couple years
possibly
later.
partially because I'm gonna have lower expectations watching that movie now,
Yeah.
right? It's okay. I've seen one of these movies. Regardless of what people say about this movie, I have some context now I can bring to it, and that's why I prefer to watch movies. That's why I'm one of those people not as spoiler phobic as many others. Is because like, if I know what the movie, if I know the movie is gonna be one I want to watch, I want to know as little as possible. If I don't know if it's a movie I want to watch, I do want to do some research and kind of come to my own expectations to it, because I feel like I need to have something going in so I can measure. Even if I'm watching casually, it's like I can't just go, I don't know what the hell this is. I'll just let it wash over me. I need to have an idea of what I'm watching, because otherwise I won't enjoy it. It's just noise. So I brought in a lot of cultural expectations onto this, that the movie is not unearned, right? I can see what I can obviously see why this movie's iconic, um, but better than terrible is not the same thing as classic.
All right, then, Eddie. If you thought that of this movie, what are we going to do next time that maybe you shouldn't bring as many expectations to?
Billy the Kid versus Draco. No,
I think it's like
we're
Billy Kid
gonna.
meets Frankenstein's daughter, right?
Oh, that's right. That was the double feature, wasn't it? That Billy the Kid versus Draco was way worse than Django. Let's be
Oh,
perfectly
you're right.
fucking
I'm sorry.
honest.
I think it's Jesse James meets.
Oh, Jesse. No, yes, Jesse James versus Frankenstein's daughter, and Billy the Kid versus Dracula. Way worse than this. No, we're gonna watch. We're gonna go ahead 2 years and watch Once Upon a Time in the West. And once again, I know nothing about this movie, so it'll be an adventure for all of us.
And if in case anyone's curious, we had to do a Leone movie and a
Right,
Cambucci movie. So we did Leone second because everyone had thought we'd probably do Leone first.
right.
And I'm that
And,
guy.
and honestly, in a way, I'm glad we're doing it this way, because watching a later Leone is probably better, because like I think I have the same problem watching the Dollars trilogy. Is even though I've seen it before, there's such a pop culture expectation on those movies. It would be hard to talk around them. This one was a little easier because Django doesn't have quite the same cachet.
Yeah.
Um, so watching a later Leone filming where it doesn't have that patina of expectation, I think will help.
So, Eddie, where can people come talk to you about your new love of westerns and for when you watch The Great Silence?
Well, you can probably find me somewhere wandering in New Mexico, looking at the bluffs and covered in mud, challenging my assertions and wondering if revenge or gold is more important to me until ultimately I decide to chew my fucking hands off and shoot somebody with the side of a cross. Or you can find me at pugsstudy.com.
Is that on Blue Sky? Is that on Mastodon? Is that on Facebook? Is
I
that
don't know,
on?
figure it out. Just do some work. Just Google. Come on. You know how to use it.
If you're looking for me, you can find me in Dark Hue Discord, or you can find me on Mastodon or Blue Sky at Darker Hue. And if you want to come talk to me about The Great Silence, you have to wait because I have actually never watched The Great Silence. Only so much
Oh, there
time,
you
and
go.
even in my life, to watch a movie.
What? Okay. Well, in that case, we'll see you next time we talk about Sergio Leone and something he made, I guess.